What would you do if the person you trusted most with your daughter's future became the very monster who destroyed it? Have you ever felt something was off about someone in authority but couldn't quite put your finger on it? Do you know someone who seemed perfect in public but gave you chills in private? Has someone in your community ever shocked you with their hidden darkness? This is the story of Pastor Joseph Blair, a man who spent decades building trust, commanding respect, and hiding behind a collar while harboring a twisted obsession that would cost an innocent man his life just hours before he was supposed to walk down the aisle. If stories like this make you question who you can really trust, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell because we're about to expose the truth behind one of the most disturbing cases of betrayal you've ever heard. October 11th, 2022. Tomorrow was supposed to be the happiest day of Bianca Blair's life. Her wedding dress hung perfectly pressed in the closet. The flowers were arranged. The church was ready. Her fiancé Marcus Johnson had spent the evening with friends, laughing about cold feet and making final preparations. But Marcus never made it to his wedding. How well do you really know the people closest to you? What happens when the person who raised you, who baptized you, who you called daddy for 26 years, becomes the reason your world collapses? Because Pastor Joseph Blair wasn't just any religious leader. He was Bianca's father. The man who walked her to school, who taught her about faith, who she trusted with every secret. But behind his gentle sermons and caring facade, Joseph was hiding something that would turn a celebration into a nightmare. What drove a respected pastor to commit the unthinkable? What warning signs did everyone miss? And how did one night of rejection lead to a murder so calculated, so brutal, that it would expose decades of lies and destroy an entire congregation's faith? Stay with me because this case will make you question everything you think you know about trust, family, and the people who claim to speak for God. The truth about what happened in that church study will leave you speechless. Before there was ever a wedding date, before the police reports, before the nightmare that would destroy everything, there was love. A quiet kind of love, steady and unshaken, built from something real. The kind of love that made sense long before it was given a label. It started in the summer of 2018, in a crowded hotel ballroom in Atlanta, Georgia. Bianca Blair didn't go there looking for anything. She was focused on her voice, her goals, her lane. The Youth Leadership Empowerment Retreat was a space where she thrived. Rooms full of opinion, challenge, and ambition. When she stood up during a group session on Black family values and challenged the crowd with one of her signature sharp takes, she didn't expect to be met with anything but nods or rebuttals. But then Marcus Johnson spoke, one voice across the room, low, calm, thoughtful. He didn't argue. He built. He added. He looked at the same topic from a different angle, and instead of clashing with her, he complimented her. She turned to look at him fully for the first time. It wasn't sparks. It was something slower, more grounded. They didn't exchange numbers. Not then. A smile, a head nod, a few words in passing over boxed lunches. Then it was over. Until months later, she stumbled across his profile online. A short video of him mentoring teenage boys in Houston caught her attention. His voice hadn't changed, still calm, still direct, still different. She messaged him. He messaged back. What followed wasn't fireworks. It was consistent, honest connection. Phone calls that stretched into the night. Texts that weren't just cute but meaningful. Discussions about faith, therapy, responsibility, the future. They had a rhythm. They had respect. And eventually, they had love. It took almost a year before they began calling it a relationship. They weren't rushing toward labels, they were building toward trust. By the time they met again in person, there was no awkwardness, just confirmation. They fit. Bianca had always been told she was too much for men to handle, too bold, too direct, too ambitious. But Marcus never tried to shrink her. He made room. She once told a friend, "He doesn't flinch when I take up space. He just stands beside me." For Marcus, she was light and gravity. He didn't want to dim it. He wanted to protect it. By early 2021, Marcus had already decided. He wanted to marry her, and he knew exactly how. On a quiet February night, in a packed open mic cafe in Houston, he took the stage and performed a poem he'd written just for her. Bianca didn't realize it was a proposal until the final line. When he pulled the ring from his pocket and knelt, she laughed through tears. She didn't have to think. Her answer had been ready for months. Yes. The wedding date was set later that spring, October 12, 2022, a Thursday morning. Bianca had always said she wanted her wedding in daylight. No ballrooms, no fog machines, just warmth and witnesses. Family members volunteered to help. Friends offered everything from DJing to desserts. The church was booked. The dress was chosen. The couple was ready. If you've ever planned a wedding, you know how much trust goes into that day. You trust your vendors, your venue, your family. But what happens when the person you trust most becomes your worst nightmare? Keep watching because this love story is about to take a turn that will shock you. But not everyone showed the same enthusiasm. Joseph Blair, Bianca's father and longtime pastor, kept his distance. He wasn't disruptive. He wasn't rude. But he wasn't present either. Missed calls. Missed meetings. When Bianca noticed, she chalked it up to emotion. Maybe it was hard for him. She was his only child. Maybe letting go just looked different for him. But later, much later, she would wonder whether he had already let go of something long before anyone knew there was something to fear. Joseph Blair was 43 years old. For nearly 2 decades, he had been the face of Greater Living Word Ministries, a church that wasn't just a building but a name that carried weight in the community. He was the man whose voice anchored Sunday mornings, whose words baptized generations, who married couples and buried elders. To most, he was a shepherd, controlled, structured, steady. After losing his wife in 2013, he had raised Bianca alone. Never remarried. Never publicly dated. People whispered that he was still grieving, that he had chosen devotion over companionship. And to many, that made him even more admirable. But while Bianca and Marcus were preparing for their special wedding, unknown to them, someone else was preparing for something entirely different. Because behind Joseph Blair's gentle sermons and caring facade, something dark was growing. Something that would turn a celebration into a nightmare and expose decades of lies that would destroy an entire congregation's faith. I'll continue with the remaining sections of the story, maintaining the strategic approach from the document. It started with small things. Things so subtle that Marcus almost convinced himself he was imagining them. The first time he noticed something was off was during a family dinner in March 2022, 6 months before the wedding. Joseph had invited Marcus over for what he called getting to know my future son-in-law better. The evening began normally. Joseph cooked, something he took pride in, and they talked about Marcus's work, his family, his intentions with Bianca. Standard father of the bride conversation. But then Bianca excused herself to take a work call, and the atmosphere shifted. Joseph's questions became more personal, more invasive. He asked about Marcus's past relationships, his sexual history, his physical preferences. When Marcus tried to deflect with humor, Joseph pressed harder. "I need to know what kind of man my daughter is marrying," Joseph said, his voice dropping lower. "What kind of needs you have?" Marcus felt his skin crawl, but he rationalized it. Maybe this was just an overprotective father being awkward about intimate topics. Maybe this was Joseph's clumsy way of making sure his daughter would be satisfied in marriage. When Bianca returned, Joseph's demeanor snapped back to normal so quickly that Marcus wondered if he'd imagined the whole thing. But it wasn't a one-time occurrence. Over the following months, Joseph found reasons to get Marcus alone. Church meetings that Bianca couldn't attend. Errands that required just the men. Coffee conversations that always seemed to drift toward inappropriate territory. Joseph would ask about Marcus's body, his workout routine, his physical confidence. He would make comments about how blessed Marcus was, how lucky Bianca was to have someone so well built. Each time, Marcus felt more uncomfortable. Each time, he told himself he was overreacting. By August, Marcus couldn't keep it to himself anymore. During a bachelor party planning session with his best friend Andre, Marcus finally spoke up. "Man, I think Bianca's dad might be. I don't know how to say this without sounding crazy." Andre set down his beer. "What's going on? He keeps making these comments, asking these questions, looking at me in ways that make my skin crawl. I think he might be attracted to me." Andre was quiet for a long moment. "Have you told Bianca? How do I tell her that? Hey, your dad who raised you alone and who you worship might be sexually interested in your fiancé? She'd think I was losing my mind. But if it's true, I don't even know if it is true. Maybe I'm reading too much into it. Maybe this is just how he is." Andre shook his head. "Trust your gut, man. If something feels wrong, it probably is. Have you ever been in a situation where you knew something was wrong but couldn't prove it? Where speaking up might destroy relationships but staying quiet felt dangerous?" Marcus was about to learn that sometimes the cost of silence is higher than anyone could imagine. September brought more aggressive behavior. Joseph began showing up at Marcus's apartment unannounced. He would bring food, offer to help with wedding preparations, find excuses to stay longer than necessary. During one visit, Joseph asked to use Marcus's bathroom and was gone for almost 20 minutes. When Marcus knocked to check on him, Joseph emerged looking flushed and disoriented. Later, Marcus discovered that items in his bedroom had been moved. His dresser drawers weren't quite closed the way he'd left them. His laundry hamper seemed disturbed. He started locking his bedroom door when Joseph visited. 2 weeks before the wedding, Joseph's behavior became impossible to ignore. During what was supposed to be a final fitting for the groomsmen's suits, Joseph cornered Marcus in the dressing room. With the curtain drawn and other customers just feet away, Joseph placed his hand on Marcus's chest. "You know I care about you, right?" Joseph whispered. "More than just as a future son-in-law." Marcus stepped back, his heart racing. "Pastor Blair, I think there's been a misunderstanding." "Has there been?" Joseph moved closer. "I see how you look at me sometimes. I think we understand each other. I don't know what you think you see, but you're wrong. I love Bianca. I'm marrying Bianca." Joseph's expression darkened. "Everyone has needs, Marcus. Desires they can't share with their wives. I could help you with that." Marcus pushed past him and left the store immediately. That night, Marcus called Andre in a panic. He made a move. An actual move. "I can't pretend this isn't happening anymore. You have to tell Bianca. The wedding is in 2 weeks. Her whole family is coming. The church is booked. The deposits are paid. Marcus, this man is dangerous. Maybe I can just avoid him. Maybe after the wedding, when we move to our own place, it'll stop. And if it doesn't?" Marcus was quiet. He didn't have an answer. What Marcus didn't know was that Joseph Blair had already decided that avoiding him wasn't going to be an option. What Marcus didn't know was that rejection had never been something Joseph handled well. What Marcus didn't know was that in Joseph's mind, the wedding wasn't a celebration to endure, it was an obstacle to eliminate. And what Marcus definitely didn't know was that Joseph had already begun planning for a night when there would be no witnesses, no interruptions, and no possibility of being told no again. The wedding was supposed to be in 3 days. But Joseph Blair had other plans for the night before. The rehearsal dinner had gone perfectly. Laughter echoed through the church fellowship hall as family and friends celebrated the couple who would be married in less than 18 hours. Marcus felt lighter than he had in weeks. Surrounded by people who loved him and Bianca, Joseph's inappropriate behavior seemed like a distant worry. Maybe Andre had been wrong. Maybe the wedding would reset everything. As the evening wound down, guests began saying their goodbyes. Traditional hugs, well wishes, and reminders about tomorrow's early start time. Bianca was glowing. She hugged Marcus tightly before leaving with her bridesmaids for their final girls' night. "Tomorrow we'll be married," she whispered in his ear. "I can't wait," Marcus replied, and he meant it. Marcus had just arrived at his apartment when his phone rang. Joseph Blair's name appeared on the screen. For a moment, Marcus considered not answering. But tomorrow was the wedding. He needed to keep the peace for Bianca's sake. "Hello, Pastor Blair." "Marcus, son, I need to speak with you. It's important. Can you come to the church? Tonight? Is everything okay? There's something about tomorrow that we need to discuss. Something private. It won't take long." Marcus hesitated. Every instinct told him to say no. But Joseph's tone was different, urgent, almost desperate. "Can't we talk about it tomorrow? Please, Marcus. This can't wait. I'm in my office now." Against his better judgment, Marcus agreed. Greater Living Word Ministries looked different at night. The building that felt warm and welcoming during Sunday services now seemed hollow and cold. Marcus found the side door unlocked, as Joseph had promised. The hallway lights were dimmed, casting long shadows as he made his way to the pastor's office. Joseph was waiting behind his desk, but something was off. His usual composed demeanor was gone. His eyes were red-rimmed, his hands shaking slightly. "Thank you for coming," Joseph said, his voice strained. "Please, sit down." Marcus remained standing. "What did you need to talk about?" Joseph stood up slowly, moving around the desk. "I've been thinking about our conversation at the suit fitting. About what I said. Pastor Blair, I think we should just forget about that. Tomorrow is about Bianca, and I can't forget about it." Joseph's voice was barely above a whisper. "I can't stop thinking about you, Marcus. About us." Marcus backed toward the door. "There is no us. I'm marrying your daughter tomorrow. Are you?" Joseph moved closer. "Because I've been wondering if that's really what you want. If maybe you've been feeling the same things I have." "I haven't. I love Bianca. But you could love me too." Joseph's eyes were wild now, desperate. "I see how you look at me. I know you feel it." Marcus reached for the door handle, but Joseph was faster. He grabbed Marcus's wrist, his grip surprisingly strong. "Don't leave. Not yet. Just let me show you. Let go of me." Marcus tried to pull away, but Joseph's grip tightened. "I know what you need. What you really want. Forget about tomorrow. Forget about her. Just for tonight." What happened next would haunt the investigators for months. Joseph's desperation turned to rage when Marcus continued to resist. The rejection he had feared became the reality he couldn't accept. The struggle was brief but violent. Joseph was stronger than his slight frame suggested, fueled by months of obsession and years of repressed desires. Marcus fought back, but the confined space of the office worked against him. When he tried to scream, Joseph's hand covered his mouth. When he tried to run, Joseph blocked the door. The details of what Joseph Blair did to Marcus Johnson in that church office are too disturbing to describe in full. What matters is that it began as an attempted sexual assault and ended as murder. When Marcus continued to refuse, continued to fight, continued to say no, Joseph's obsession turned deadly. The man who had spent decades preaching about love and forgiveness became a killer in the very building where he had baptized children and married couples. When it was over, Joseph sat in his office chair, staring at Marcus's lifeless body, and began to plan. He cleaned the office methodically. He moved the body to his car. He drove to a remote area outside the city and disposed of the evidence. By 3 a.m., he was back home, setting his alarm for the morning. Tomorrow there would be a wedding. Tomorrow there would be questions. Tomorrow he would have to look his daughter in the eye and pretend he didn't know why her fiancé never came home. But tonight, in the darkness of his bedroom, Joseph Blair finally fell asleep, not tormented by guilt, but satisfied that he had taken what he believed was rightfully his. The wedding was supposed to start in 3 hours. Bianca Blair stood in her white dress, surrounded by bridesmaids, trying to call Marcus for the 15th time. Straight to voicemail. Maybe his phone died, her maid of honor suggested. You know how men are with charging their phones. But Bianca knew Marcus. He was punctual, responsible, considerate. He would never disappear on their wedding day without explanation. By 10 a.m., panic had set in. Andre was the first to take action. When Marcus didn't answer his calls or respond to texts, he drove to Marcus's apartment. The car was gone. The apartment was empty but undisturbed. At 11:30 a.m., 30 minutes before the ceremony was supposed to begin, Andre called the police. I need to report a missing person. Marcus Johnson. He was supposed to get married today and never came home last night. The responding officer was initially dismissive. Sir, it's not uncommon for people to get cold feet before a wedding. Maybe he just needed some time to think. You don't understand. This man was excited about getting married. Something happened to him. While guests waited in the church sanctuary, unsure whether to leave or stay, police began tracing Marcus's last known movements. His phone record showed the final call from Joseph Blair at 8:45 p.m. Security cameras from a gas station near the church captured Marcus's car driving toward Greater Living Word Ministries at 9:25 p.m. But there was no footage of him leaving. Throughout the chaos, Joseph Blair played his role perfectly. He comforted his devastated daughter, helped coordinate with police, and expressed appropriate concern for his missing future son-in-law. Marcus is a good man, he told investigators. I can't imagine where he could be. This is so unlike him. When asked about the phone call, Joseph was ready with his story. I called to discuss some last-minute details about the ceremony. He said he would come by the church, but he never showed up. I waited until about 10:30 and then went home. The story was plausible. Joseph's demeanor was convincing. He was, after all, a practiced performer who had been delivering believable sermons for 20 years. What the investigators didn't know yet was that they were dealing with someone who had spent decades manipulating people's trust. Someone who knew exactly how to appear innocent while hiding the darkest secrets. But the truth has a way of surfacing, no matter how deep you bury it. 3 days into the investigation, a jogger found Marcus's car abandoned in a wooded area 15 miles from the church. The vehicle was clean, too clean. Someone had wiped down every surface, removed every trace of fingerprints. But they missed something. Hidden under the passenger seat, investigators found Marcus's wedding ring, the ring he had been planning to place on Bianca's finger. It was covered in blood. A forensic team processed the church office where Joseph claimed he had waited for Marcus. Despite Joseph's thorough cleaning, luminol revealed blood spatter on the wall behind the desk. DNA testing confirmed it was Marcus's blood. Security footage from a traffic camera caught Joseph's car leaving the church area at 11:52 p.m., more than an hour after he claimed to have gone home. On October 18th, 6 days after the failed wedding, detectives arrived at Joseph Blair's home with a search warrant. They found Marcus's wallet hidden in Joseph's bedroom closet. They found clothing with bloodstains that Joseph had failed to dispose of properly. They found internet search history on Joseph's computer that painted a disturbing picture of his obsession with Marcus. But most damning of all, they found a journal. Joseph Blair had been documenting his feelings about Marcus for months. Page after page of obsessive thoughts, sexual fantasies, and detailed plans for seduction. The final entry, dated October 11th, was chilling. Asterisk, tonight I tell him the truth. Tonight he stops pretending he doesn't want me. If he won't come willingly, I'll make him understand. The wedding can't happen. I won't let her have what should be mine. Asterisk. Joseph Blair was arrested on October 19, 2022, and charged with first-degree murder, attempted sexual assault, and tampering with evidence. When detectives read him his rights, he remained silent. When they asked if he wanted to make a statement, he requested a lawyer. But his silence spoke volumes. The arrest sent shockwaves through Greater Living Word Ministries and the surrounding community. Church members who had trusted Joseph with their deepest secrets, their marriages, their children, struggled to reconcile the man they thought they knew with the monster he had revealed himself to be. Some refused to believe it. Others began remembering incidents that suddenly took on new meaning, inappropriate comments, boundary violations, moments when Joseph's behavior had made them uncomfortable but they had dismissed their instincts. For Bianca Blair, the arrest was devastating beyond measure. In 1 week, she had lost her fiancé and discovered that her father, the man who raised her, who she trusted above all others, was his killer. The wedding dress still hung in her closet. The flowers had long since wilted. The future she had planned was gone, replaced by a nightmare she couldn't wake up from. As prosecutors prepared their case, the full scope of Joseph Blair's crimes began to emerge. This wasn't a crime of passion or a moment of temporary insanity. This was premeditated murder committed by a man who had spent months planning to eliminate the obstacle between him and his twisted desires. The evidence was overwhelming. The motive was clear. Justice for Marcus Johnson was finally within reach. The trial of Joseph Blair lasted 3 weeks and dominated local headlines. Prosecutors painted a picture of a predator who had hidden behind religious authority while harboring dangerous obsessions. The evidence was overwhelming. DNA, blood spatter, digital footprints, and Joseph's own written confessions in his journal left no room for reasonable doubt. Joseph's defense team attempted to argue temporary insanity, claiming their client had suffered a psychological break. But the prosecution's evidence showed months of premeditation, careful planning, and calculated deception. On March 24, 2023, after less than 4 hours of deliberation, the jury returned a guilty verdict on all charges. First-degree murder, attempted sexual assault, tampering with evidence, abuse of a corpse. Joseph Blair was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. When the verdict was read, he showed no emotion, no remorse, no acknowledgement of the lives he had destroyed. The woman who should have been celebrating her first wedding anniversary was instead learning to rebuild her life from nothing. Bianca left the church, left the community, and moved across the country to start over. She changed her name, sought intensive therapy, and slowly began the process of healing from unimaginable trauma. In a victim impact statement read at sentencing, she wrote, "*You didn't just kill Marcus. You killed the daughter who trusted you, the congregation that believed in you, and the faith of everyone who thought they knew you. But you didn't kill my spirit. I will survive this. I will heal. And I will make sure Marcus is remembered for who he truly was, a good man who deserved so much better." Greater Living Word Ministries closed permanently 6 months after Joseph's arrest. The building was sold, and the congregation scattered to other churches. Some members struggled with their faith, unable to reconcile how they had been so thoroughly deceived. Others found strength in supporting each other through the trauma. A memorial fund was established in Marcus Johnson's name, providing scholarships for young men pursuing careers in mentorship and community service, the work Marcus had been passionate about. This case serves as a chilling reminder that predators often hide behind positions of trust and authority. They count on our reluctance to question respected figures, our desire to give people the benefit of the doubt, and our tendency to dismiss our instincts when something feels wrong. Marcus Johnson trusted his gut about Joseph Blair, but he stayed silent to protect the woman he loved and preserve a wedding that was supposed to be the happiest day of their lives. If this story has taught us anything, it's that we must listen to our instincts and speak up when something feels wrong, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it might hurt people we care about. Because sometimes, staying silent costs more than we could ever imagine. If stories like this make you think about trust, authority, and the importance of speaking up, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this message. And remember, your safety is more important than anyone's feelings. Marcus Johnson deserved justice. He deserved to live. He deserved to marry the woman he loved. While we can't give him back his life, we can honor his memory by refusing to stay silent when something feels wrong.